Alright, so in this tutorial, we're going to talk about commands. We're going to create a very simple implementation of a element command so you can see how that works in UFrame. I do want to point out before I get started, before the last tutorial, which we're going to be extending by the way, we released the version 1.2. So if you see some discrepancies in the visuals from the previous tutorial, it's because of this transition. So let's get started creating our first command. Alright, so I'm just going to double click on the game core here. And on the simple binding element we created, I'm just going to add a command by clicking the plus button. Alright, so I'm just going to call this change message. And this command is going to do exactly what it says, and that is change the message. And this command is going to do exactly what it says and change the message. So let's just click save. So the code will now reflect our changes. Wait for it to compile. One cool thing to note here is that in version 1.2, we've created a plugin for Unity VS that when you save your diagram, it actually syncs your Visual Studio project files. If you don't have Unity VS, you can simply remove this by going to UFrame Complete, UFrame, Plugins, and then Unity VS. And there's the Unity VS plugin file. You can just delete this folder if you don't have it. Alright, so let's right click on that element, go to Open, Simple Binding Element Controller. Alright, so when you see the controller, you're not going to see anything for the command right away, but it implements the base controller which is generated for you and has the stubs for each command that you've added. So all we have to do here is just do public override, and you'll see the method stub for the command already there for you. So in this method, we are going to just simply change the message. So let's do simple binding. And this is a single instance element, meaning that there's only one. We'll talk about this more in further tutorials. But on a single instance element, the controller has a property for you with the element name. So this is our actual data class, and we'll go ahead and access that and then access the message property, and we'll just simply change the message to whatever we want this to be. Say we want it to be the message has changed. Alright, let's save that. Switch back to Unity. Wait for it to compile. So when we execute methods, we want to do it from the view. This is the key idea behind the separation in UFrame. All of the logic goes in our controller, and that controller gets executed via the view. So what we're going to do here is just right click on the view, go to Open, Simple Binding View. And in this view, we have the ultimate control over when the execution of change message is invoked and when that actually occurs. So I'm going to keep this simple and just write a public void update method. And I'm going to say if input.get key down, and we'll do key code enter. Not keypad. I guess it's return, sorry. So in every view, uFrame takes the liberty of generating execute methods for each of your element commands that you've defined in the diagram. These commands can be accessed simply by typing in execute, and you'll see every command here prefixed with the execute word. So let's do execute change message, and that's all we have to do. It's as simple as that. So now let's switch back to Unity, clear out our console, hit the play button, and you'll see we still have our hello from our initial value that we did in the first tutorial. So now all I have to do is hit enter, and you'll see the property has changed. So let's take a look at what uFrame is doing in the background to make all of this fun stuff happen. So on the simple binding view, we're creating a user interaction where the user presses enter and then executes the execute change message, which is just a wrapper method that ultimately uses a property on the view model that has already been initialized to invoke the change message method on the controller. And inside this method, we're setting the message property, which is on that view model. And then from there, the view is notified via bindings that this property has changed. So since uFrame has done most of the binding boilerplate code for you, all we had to do was override the message change method like we did in the first tutorial and do something when that changed. So that's all there is to it. This is the general workflow of how things flow inside of uFrame. Thanks for watching.